guys, so today I'm going to tell you about one of the things that you have to do when you want to make a film or a short video or anything in that general area. Typically the first thing you start out with is a script, but you can't do that unless you have a real story that you want to tell. So there are a few theorists that we want to talk about that help us with the idea of building a story. The first one is a guy called Aristotle. You've probably heard of him as a bit of a Greek philosopher sort of dude, but he also was really involved in the theatre, and he invented the idea of a story having a beginning, middle and an end. These were normally divided into the different acts and when you have a play. So you know how you have an intermission? They used to have like a bit of a break, so you could have the beginning of a story where it builds the situation, the middle of the story where something happens, and the end of it is where the conclusion is. Building on this idea, you may have heard of a guy called Todorov, where his idea of a story is you have a situation known as the equilibrium, and then there is the disruption of the equilibrium, like if you were in a school situation and a new student were to arrive. And then you've got the disequilibrium, where maybe the student caused a problem, like they cheated on a test and someone else is getting the blame for it. The attempt to resolve the disequilibrium could be maybe someone coming forward and saying that they didn't actually cheat on the test, they did this thing instead. And then the new equilibrium is the end of the story where something's probably different from how it was in the beginning, but everyone's pretty much at peace with what's going on. All these stages don't need to be shown in chronological order, like you may have heard of a film by Christopher Nolan called Memento. That film is shown in reverse, but you still have all the different stages that Todorov mentions. Someone who played with the idea of different narrative structures is a theorist called Alan Cameron, who thought of the idea that there are 4 different types of storytelling. There are anachronic stories, which are basically flashbacks, which again is Memento. There are forking path stories, where they show alternate timelines, so films like Run Lola Run per se. There are split screen stories, which is something like, you know, that bit in 500 Days of Summer, which is like reality versus expectations, that's what that is. And then there are episodic stories, which are basically different timelines, things that seem completely irrelevant to each other until the very end when they all interlink. An example of that would be Cloud Atlas, and that's what Alan Cameron thought of. So once you have your story, you need to put characters into it. A man called Prop came up with different sort of character archetypes that are normally filled in the process of a story developing. There is the hero, who is the protagonist, the person you're following. If it's a first-person situation, it'll be that person. There is the antagonist, also known as the villain, who is pretty much the person trying to stop the protagonist achieving whatever they want to achieve in this story arc. They have the helper, who is basically like the sidekick, you know, Batman Robin situation. They basically help them along. There is the donor, who, although kind of similar to the helper, they are trying to assist the protagonist, but they provide information allowing them to do that. Another character type is someone called the dispatcher, who is the person who sends the protagonist on their journey. Say the end of the world's going to happen. The dispatcher is the person who lets the superhero know the end of the world is going to happen and tells them most likely how they would achieve saving the world. Now there's another one which is called the princess traditionally, but as time goes on it's sort of developed into calling this character the prize. So at the end of it, superheroes save the world, and it's like, this is my reward for saving the world, is getting to be with this person. So a prize character for, say, Superman would be Lois Lane, because at the end of a story arc of his, he gets to be with her. There is a character archetype which is sometimes known as the false hero, or sometimes you could swap out the idea of anti-hero. They do sound like sort of different things, but it's basically in the story you either have one or the other. Like in Beauty and the Beast, which is the Disney story, you have Gaston, who portrays himself very much as a hero to the village people, but obviously we know that the Beast is actually the good guy in all this, because Gaston goes. And then the final character archetype is known as the father, which is traditionally the person who provides the prize at the end of it. So like, I don't know, Lois Lane's dad's giving Superman permission to do whatever, but personally I don't think he would need to ask permission. Not every story has those archetypes filled out so rigidly. Some people may fill more than one role, some people may like only do one role for a bit and then change, but the idea is that these characters all exist within a good story. Another theorist in the world of narrative development is Levi Strauss, who thought of the idea known as binary opposition, where you have like good versus evil, or light versus dark, or poor versus rich, and pretty much any story has some sort of battling force that is like driving the whole situation that the characters are going through. Obviously, I've not told you very much about the technical aspects of making a script, but once you have your story, it's very easy to implement the set rules into your manuscript. So hopefully that's helped.